They are apologizing and confessing, everything instant reality shift. There comes a moment when you realize that the story you have been repeating in your mind is not the only story available to you. Maybe you have been waiting for an apology. Maybe there are words you wish they had said, truths you wish they had confessed, and questions that have remained unanswered for far too long. Perhaps you have replayed the silence, analyzed every action, wondered what they truly felt, and asked yourself whether they would ever understand the pain, confusion, or distance their actions created. But what if the greatest shift does not begin with them? What if it begins with the moment you stop allowing the present circumstances to define the final outcome? Today, you are invited to step out of the state of waiting. Stop waiting for the message. Stop waiting for the apology. Stop waiting for the confession. Stop waiting for the outside world to give you permission to feel chosen, valued, understood, and at peace. Because the moment you change the meaning you are giving to your story, something powerful begins to change within you. You are no longer the person sitting in uncertainty, desperately searching for evidence. You become the person who knows that clarity is possible, resolution is possible, and a completely different experience can begin with a decision made inside your own mind. Imagine for a moment that the conversation you have been longing for has already happened. Imagine hearing the words you wanted to hear. Imagine the truth finally being spoken. Imagine them looking at you with honesty and saying everything they once kept hidden. The apology, the explanation, the confession, the realization. Feel what it would be like if there were nothing left to chase, nothing left to decode, and nothing left to fear. Not because you are forcing another person, but because you are choosing to release yourself from the identity of someone who must endlessly wait for answers. This is where the instant reality shift begins. It begins when you stop emotionally rehearsing rejection and start rehearsing fulfillment. It begins when you stop asking, why haven't they apologized yet? And begin asking, who would I be if I already felt complete, respected, and at peace? The outer world may still be showing you an old chapter, but you do not have to keep reading from the same page. You can choose a new inner direction now. So take a deep breath. Let the old conversations grow quiet. Release the need to control every detail and every outcome. Allow yourself to enter a new state, a state where you are no longer begging life for closure because you have discovered a deeper sense of closure within yourself. If an apology comes, you can receive it from a place of strength. If a confession comes, you can hear it without losing yourself. And while you move forward, let this moment remind you of something powerful. Your inner world does not have to remain trapped in the same painful story forever. Today, choose a different story. Choose peace over obsession. Choose fulfillment over waiting. Choose the version of yourself who knows that one conversation, one realization, one decision, or one unexpected moment can change the direction of an entire experience. The shift can begin now, not when everything outside you becomes perfect, but when you decide that you are no longer going to let the old reality control the way you see yourself. And as you listen to these words, let yourself become open to clarity, healing, honest communication, and the possibility of a new chapter. Release the past, release the fear, release the endless need for proof, because sometimes the most powerful moment is the moment you stop waiting for reality to change and become the person who is ready for a completely different reality to begin. The first and most important shift begins with understanding that your experience is deeply connected to the story you continue to accept within yourself. If every day you wake up asking, why haven't they apologized? Why won't they tell me the truth? Why are they still silent? Then your attention remains fixed on the version of reality that keeps you waiting. Your mind continues rehearsing absence, confusion, rejection, and disappointment. You may look at your phone repeatedly, analyze their behavior, revisit old conversations, and search for signs that something is about to change. But the more you emotionally identify with waiting, the more you remain trapped in the identity of someone who is waiting. The real question is not simply what you want them to do. The deeper question is, what story are you repeatedly telling yourself about this situation? Because the story you repeatedly occupy becomes the emotional environment from which you live your life. Perhaps the old story says that they do not care. Perhaps it says they will never understand what they did. Maybe it says they are too stubborn to apologize, too distant to confess, or too afraid to tell you how they truly feel. But you do not have to keep giving permanent meaning to temporary circumstances. What you see today does not have to become the conclusion you carry forever. You have the ability to pause, step back, and consciously choose a different assumption. Instead of repeatedly asking why they have not apologized, allow yourself to consider a new possibility. What if the situation is moving toward clarity? What if the truth is becoming impossible to ignore? What if I no longer need to live as the version of myself who expects disappointment? This does not mean pretending that the past never happened. It does not mean denying your feelings or forcing yourself to ignore pain. It means deciding that the past will not be the only source from which you create your future expectations. You can acknowledge what happened without building your entire identity around it. You can say, yes, that hurt me. Yes, I wanted answers. Yes, there were things left unsaid. But I refuse to remain emotionally imprisoned by that chapter. That is where your power begins to return. You stop handing all authority to another person's behavior and begin paying attention to your own inner position. Imagine what it would feel like to no longer be desperate for an apology because you already know your worth. Imagine feeling calm rather than anxious, secure rather than abandoned, open rather than afraid. From that state, you can imagine the kind of communication you desire without becoming consumed by it. You can hear words such as, I understand now, I'm sorry, I should have been honest with you, I never told you how I truly felt. Allow the experience to become emotionally meaningful, not as a guarantee that you can control another person, but as a way of releasing yourself from the endless mental rehearsal of pain. The greatest instant reality shift may happen the moment you stop asking the outside world to tell you who you are. You are not merely the person who was ignored, hurt, or left waiting for answers. You can become the person who knows they deserve honesty, respect, peace, and healthy communication. When you repeatedly return to that understanding, your choices begin to change. Your reactions become calmer. Your boundaries become clearer. Your expectations become healthier. So today, choose the story you want to live from. Stop allowing silence to automatically mean rejection. Stop allowing the past to dictate every expectation for the future. Release the identity of the person who must constantly search for proof. Become grounded in your own worth and open to clarity wherever it comes from. The shift begins the moment you realize that you can change your inner story now. And when your inner world changes, you are better prepared to recognize, receive, and respond to new possibilities. You do not have to remain in the old reality simply because it is familiar. A new chapter can begin with the story you choose to believe about yourself today. One of the most powerful things you can do when you desire an apology, a confession, or a complete change in a relationship is to stop repeating the old story as if it must continue forever. The mind has a tendency to return to familiar pain. You may replay the moment they hurt you, remember the words they never said, revisit the silence, or repeatedly ask yourself why they acted the way they did. Every time you tell the story, you may feel the same emotions all over again. Anger returns, sadness returns, confusion returns. You begin searching for new evidence to support the conclusion you have already accepted. But if you want to experience an inner reality shift, there comes a point where you must ask yourself, how long am I willing to let one chapter define the entire story? What happened may have been real, and your feelings may be completely valid, but the meaning you continue to assign to the experience is something you can examine and change. Releasing the old story does not mean pretending that you were never hurt. It does not mean excusing behavior that was disrespectful or abandoning your boundaries. It means refusing to carry the pain into every new moment, as though nothing else is possible. There is a difference between remembering what happened and living inside what happened. You can acknowledge the past without making it your permanent identity. You can say, yes, there was confusion. Yes, there were things that hurt me. Yes, I wanted honesty and never received it at that time, but I am not going to spend every day emotionally recreating the same experience. That decision alone can create an incredible sense of freedom. Think about how often the inner conversation becomes a courtroom. You imagine what you should have said. You imagine what they should have admitted. You create arguments in your mind, defend yourself, accuse them, and wait for an imaginary version of them to finally understand everything. Yet while you continue having these painful internal conversations, you remain connected to the emotional state you want to leave behind. Instead, you can gently change the conversation. You can imagine resolution. You can imagine honesty. You can allow yourself to hear the words that represent the closure you desire. I understand how my actions affected you. I should have been honest. I'm sorry. The purpose is not to force another person to behave according to a script. The purpose is to stop forcing yourself to relive emotional suffering through the same repetitive story. Ask yourself who you would be if you were no longer defined by what happened. How would you feel if you no longer woke up expecting rejection? How would you move through your day if you trusted that you could handle whatever conversation eventually came? Perhaps you would feel lighter. Perhaps you would stop checking for signs. Perhaps you would become more present, confident, and emotionally secure. This is the version of you that deserves your attention. Instead of making another person's apology the source of your peace, begin giving yourself permission to experience peace now. The old story may try to return because it is familiar. You may suddenly remember something painful and feel tempted to say, "See, nothing will ever change." When that happens, pause. You do not have to fight the thought, but you also do not have to worship it. You can recognize it as an old mental pattern and consciously choose not to build your future around it. Say to yourself, "That was then. I am choosing a different inner experience now. I do not need to keep proving that I was hurt. I am allowed to heal. I am allowed to expect honesty, respect, and clarity." This is where true transformation begins. When you release the old story, you create space for a new one. You become less attached to chasing an apology because your self-worth is no longer waiting for another person to confirm it. And from that stronger, calmer place, you can welcome healthy communication and genuine accountability if it comes, without losing yourself in the process. The past may explain where you have been, but it does not have to decide where you are going. Let the old story end where it belongs, and allow yourself to become someone who is ready for a new reality built on peace, truth, respect, and emotional freedom. There is something powerful about changing the conversation you are having within yourself before you become completely dependent on hearing those words from the outside world. Perhaps there is a confession you have wanted to hear for a long time. Maybe you have wondered what they truly feel. Maybe you have questioned whether they regret what happened, whether they miss you, whether they understand your silence, or whether they have finally realized the truth about the connection you shared. The mind can spend countless hours trying to discover what another person is thinking, analyzing every message, every social media post, every period of silence, and every small change in behavior. But eventually, all of that searching can become exhausting. Instead of constantly asking, "What are they going to say?" you can begin by asking, "What would it feel like for me to finally experience the clarity I desire?" Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that the difficult conversation is no longer something you fear or endlessly wait for. Imagine that honesty has entered the situation. Imagine hearing words that bring understanding and closure. Perhaps you hear, "I need to tell you the truth. I have been holding so much inside." Perhaps the words continue, "I am sorry for the way I handled things. You deserved honesty from me." Or perhaps the confession you desire is simpler, "I never stopped caring. I just did not know how to say it." You do not need to know every exact word, and you do not need to create a perfect script for another person. The purpose of this inner exercise is to connect with the emotional experience of resolution rather than remaining trapped in the emotional experience of uncertainty. For so long, you may have been rehearsing the opposite. You may have imagined them ignoring you, rejecting you, moving on, or never giving you the answers you wanted. Without realizing it, you may have repeatedly placed yourself inside painful imaginary scenes. You became both the audience and the storyteller of a narrative that kept you anxious. But the moment you consciously choose a different inner scene, you interrupt that pattern. You begin giving your attention to peace, honesty, and emotional completion. This does not mean that you can control another human being or guarantee exactly what they will say. Every person has their own choices and agency. But you can absolutely change the way you relate to the uncertainty, the way you care for yourself, and the expectations you bring into your life. The real transformation happens when you allow yourself to feel complete before the outside world provides the confirmation you have been seeking. Imagine how different your energy would feel if you were no longer desperate for the confession. You could still desire honest communication, but you would not feel as though your entire happiness depended on it. You could move through your day knowing that you deserve truth, whether it comes from this person or leads you toward a healthier chapter somewhere else. You become less focused on chasing a particular response and more focused on becoming emotionally secure enough to receive whatever truth emerges. When an old fear appears and whispers, "What if they never say it?" Gently return to yourself. Remind yourself that your peace does not have to be held hostage by another person's silence. You can imagine the experience of being heard, understood, and respected, because those feelings matter. You can practice hearing supportive, healing words in your inner conversations. You can tell yourself, "I deserve honesty. I deserve clarity. I am capable of handling the truth, and I do not need to chase it in fear." These are not empty words when you begin allowing yourself to emotionally accept them. The most important confession may ultimately be the one you make to yourself, that you are ready to stop living in uncertainty as your permanent home. You are ready to stop replaying what you wish had happened and begin creating a healthier inner experience now. If honest communication arrives, you can meet it with strength. If an apology is offered, you can decide whether it aligns with your standards. And if the truth takes you in an unexpected direction, you can still remain whole. So hear the possibility of resolution within your own mind first. Let yourself experience the relief of clarity. Let the endless waiting become quieter. You do not have to force a confession, chase an explanation, or surrender your peace to someone else's actions. The moment you stop emotionally living in the absence of answers and begin living from self-respect, calm, and inner completion, you create an instant shift in your own reality, and you become ready for whatever honest conversation comes next. There comes a powerful moment in every emotional journey when you realize that constantly searching for answers can keep you attached to the very uncertainty you want to escape. When you are waiting for someone to apologize, confess their feelings, explain their actions, or finally tell you the truth, it can become easy to place your entire sense of peace in their hands. You begin checking for messages, wondering what they are doing, replaying conversations, and looking for hidden meanings in every small detail. Your mind may convince you that once they finally say the right words, everything inside you will change. But true transformation begins when you understand that you do not have to postpone your peace until another person decides to give you an explanation. You can begin becoming whole now. You can become the version of yourself who desires clarity but no longer chases it in desperation. Think about the difference between wanting an answer and needing an answer in order to feel worthy. Wanting honest communication is natural. Wanting an apology after being hurt is understandable. Wanting someone to finally express what they truly feel can be deeply human. But when your entire identity becomes, "I am the person waiting for them to choose me, explain themselves, or come back with the truth," you may unknowingly keep yourself emotionally tied to waiting. The shift begins when you say, "I welcome honesty, but I do not have to abandon myself while waiting for it. I deserve peace now. I deserve to feel secure now. I deserve to live my life now." Imagine becoming the version of yourself who no longer needs to analyze every silence. You receive a message without panic. You experience a delay without immediately assuming rejection. You remember the past without allowing it to control your future. You know your value whether someone recognizes it today, tomorrow, or never. This does not make you cold or indifferent. It makes you emotionally free. You can still care deeply while refusing to lose yourself in the process. You can still hope for reconciliation while maintaining your standards. You can still desire a confession while understanding that your life is not on pause until it arrives. This is the version of you that no longer chases answers because you have stopped running away from yourself. Instead of spending every moment asking, "What are they thinking about me?" you begin asking, "What am I thinking about myself?" Instead of wondering whether you are important enough for them to apologize, you remind yourself that your worth was never created by their apology in the first place. Their accountability may matter, and their words may bring clarity, but they do not determine whether you deserve respect, love, or peace. The instant shift happens when you stop seeing yourself as powerless in the story. You may not control another person's choices, feelings, or timing, but you can choose how you respond to uncertainty. You can choose whether to spend the entire day rehearsing fear or return your attention to the life in front of you. You can choose to create healthy boundaries. You can choose to protect your emotional energy. You can choose to believe that clarity will reveal itself in the right way. Even if you do not yet know exactly how, begin practicing the feeling of already being emotionally secure. Walk into your day as someone who does not need to beg for recognition. Speak to yourself with kindness. Do the things that remind you that your life has value beyond one relationship or one unanswered question. Let your inner conversation change from, "Why haven't they apologized?" to, "I know what I deserve, and I am open to honest, respectful communication." That single shift changes the position from which you experience everything. And if the apology comes, you will no longer receive it as someone starving for validation. You will receive it as someone who can listen, observe, and decide what is right for you. If the confession comes, you can hear it from a place of strength rather than desperation. This is your power. Become the version of yourself who no longer chases answers, because you have discovered something greater than the answer itself: the ability to remain peaceful, worthy, and complete while life unfolds. From that state, you are free to welcome the clarity you desire without ever losing yourself again. The most powerful reality shift does not always begin with a phone call, a message, an apology, or a dramatic confession. Sometimes the greatest transformation happens silently, in a moment when nothing outside of you appears to have changed at all. You may still see the same circumstances. You may still be experiencing silence. You may still be wondering what another person truly feels. Yet something inside you begins to move. You stop seeing yourself as trapped in the old story. You stop identifying with waiting, worrying, and searching for proof. You begin to understand that while you cannot control another person's choices or force a particular outcome, you can change the inner position from which you experience your life. And sometimes that inner shift changes everything. For a long time, you may have believed that your happiness would begin only after they apologized. Perhaps you told yourself that you could finally relax once they confessed everything. Maybe you believed that closure, peace, or confidence would arrive the moment they finally admitted what they had done or revealed what they truly felt. But when your emotional well-being depends completely on something outside of you, you can find yourself living in a constant state of waiting. Every day becomes a question. Every silence becomes a sign. Every small event becomes something to analyze. The mind becomes exhausted because it is constantly trying to predict what will happen next. The instant shift begins when you decide that you are no longer going to wait for the outside world to give you permission to feel at peace. You can desire an apology without allowing the absence of one to destroy your self-worth. You can hope for a confession while still living a full and meaningful life. You can remain open to reconciliation without chasing, begging, or abandoning yourself. This is not giving up on what you want. It is releasing the desperate attachment that convinces you that you cannot be happy until one specific thing happens. Ask yourself this: who would I become if I truly believed that my life was moving forward, regardless of what happens next? You might become calmer. You might stop checking your phone every few minutes. You might stop replaying painful conversations in your mind. You might begin giving your attention to your goals, your relationships, your growth, and the parts of your life that deserve your energy. You would still have feelings, of course, but those feelings would no longer control every moment of your day. You would become someone who can love deeply without losing themselves. This is the inner reality you can begin creating right now. Instead of repeating, "Nothing has changed," you can say, "I am changing the way I experience this situation." Instead of constantly asking, "When will they finally apologize?" you can remind yourself, "I am worthy of respect whether or not someone is ready to acknowledge it." Instead of imagining the worst possible outcome, you can become open to positive possibilities while remaining grounded in reality. This mental and emotional shift gives you back something incredibly valuable: your power to choose how you respond. When you begin living from a state of self-respect, peace, and emotional security, your entire relationship with the situation changes. You become more capable of recognizing genuine accountability. You become more able to distinguish between empty words and meaningful change. You no longer accept an apology simply because you were desperate to hear one. You can listen, observe, and decide what aligns with your values. That is true strength. So let today be the moment you stop postponing your life. Let this be the moment you release the identity of the person who is endlessly waiting for a reality to change. Begin creating a shift within yourself now. Choose peace now. Choose self-respect now. Choose to believe that clarity can come without allowing uncertainty to consume you. And remember this: an instant reality shift does not have to mean that another person suddenly becomes who you want them to be. The deepest shift may be that you become who you were always meant to be: someone who knows their worth, trusts their ability to face the truth, welcomes honest communication, and refuses to let the past dictate their entire future. From that moment forward, you are no longer waiting for life to begin. You are living it.